A lot of gamers have been looking forward to the release of Marvel's Midnight Suns, and for a good reason, and it's because the highly anticipated Marvel's Midnight Suns pits Spider-Man against Venom, which will be out this October. For today's video, we'll be sharing with you everything you need to know about the game and more, so make sure to keep on watching it. You don't want to miss out. First up, Spider-Man and Venom square up in Marvel's Midnight Suns, which debuts this October. Spider-Man is entering the battle in Marvel's Midnight Suns, which returns on October 7th. The superhero strategy game from the creators of XCOM is sporting some new faces, including everyone's favorite parasite, Venom, after receiving a mixed response when it was first unveiled. The game was originally scheduled to release in March, but Firaxis Games creative developer Jake Solomon said in November that it would now be postponed until the second half of 2022 to improve it and add additional plot and cinematics. After a recent live stream of the game that revealed some uneven aesthetics and that Midnight Suns wasn't essentially XCOM translated into the Marvel Cinematic Universe, there was a lot of fan mistrust following that. As for the characters, the game is packed with familiar faces from Marvel's Cinematic Universe, which will be a delight to the fans. Players will mostly take on the role of the Hunter in Marvel's Midnight Suns, a brand new character that is being introduced to the Marvel Universe. As the Hunter, players can explore the Abbey, the Midnight Suns headquarters, and learn what it's like to live among the most formidable heroes in the world. They will then engage Lilith and her army of demons in a thrilling squad-based tactical battle. The game centers on characters like Blade, Ghost Rider, and other Marvel superheroes with a penchant for the paranormal as they assist the Avengers in battling Lilith, Mother of Demons, who is attempting to free the Elder God Chthon. With this Lovecraftian setting as their backdrop, the characters engage in isometric turn-based combat with defeated foes like Sabretooth, stroll back to their base, and chat trees. Midnight Suns' use of a card system to determine what actions players can do in battle was one of the curveballs that threw fans of Marvel and Firaxis Games off guard. It would not be the first strategy game to take inspiration from collectible card games and deck builders. While being in contrast to the typical fight of attrition in an XCOM, many recent independent games have experimented with the hybrid techniques, combining and matching traditional turn-based aspects with cards. In response to the phenomenal success of stuff like Slay the Spire, the most recent example is Floppy Knights, which debuted on Steam and Game Pass last month and is fantastic. Marvel Midnight Suns is a cross-gen on the PlayStation 5 and Xbox One X, and it will soon be available on Switch, Stream, and the Epic Games Store. As for the new generation consoles, they will cost $70. The new Marvel game, Marvel Midnight Suns, was announced back in 2021 and is hailed by the XCOM creators. The new game, Marvel Midnight Suns, was first made public by Firaxis in August of 2021. It formally marks the end of an era, which encompassed all of human history up to this point, when things that were not Disney properties existed. Its initial release date was set for last March, but as we can see, it got pushed back. You're likely to be even more dissatisfied if you're a gamer who can't wait for XCOM in a spandex-clad skin. Midnight Suns won't feature permadeath since the fantasy is extremely different. Firaxis, Jake Solomon told Polygon. Before E3, there were rumors about the existence of this game as part of a bigger leak of Publishers 2K's announcements. It was referred to as the time as XCOM with Marvel heroes, and this certainly seems to suit the bill. Although you can design your own superhero, famous A-list personalities like Doctor Strange or Wolverine are bound to show up. Firaxis has attempted squad-based faux superheroic antics before, as seen in Marvel Midnight Suns. The creator of XCOM Chimera Squad published that tactical game back in 2020, foregoing the series' typical emphasis on player-made squads in favor of specialized heroes with pre-existing personalities and combat skills. In essence, players were in charge of a group of boisterous super cops tasked with keeping the fragile peace between humans and aliens. It was undoubtedly a change of pace for XCOM, but in shifting away from highlighting players as victories and losses against the backdrop of possible extinction, it lost some of what made XCOM unique. Chimera Squad appears to have served as a beta test for the strategy game with a superhero theme. That means, at the very least, that many of the ideas presented will probably be more developed this time around than they would have been if Firaxis had chosen to start by using Marvel heroes. Will that produce a game that is comparable to, let's say, XCOM 2, War of the Chosen? We can only hope. Like the New Yorker whose cat got stuck in a tree and decided to wait for Spider-Man instead of calling the fire department. Midnight Suns' gameplay stream gently addresses criticism of the cards a month after it was first released. The first gameplay clips for Marvel's Midnight Suns showed us what creative director Jake Solomon meant when he said that the game's turn-based combat will be totally different from that of XCOM. He was referring to card-based combat. Not everybody agreed with that choice. According to YouTube comments, some viewers were anticipating XCOM with Marvel characters, which Solomon specifically stated Midnight Suns wouldn't be, and were dubious that they would enjoy the incorporation of card game elements. Solomon brought up the displeasure on a livestream back in September since it was so obvious. Solomon jokingly said there's nothing controversial about the cards, but he elaborated further, saying, "In case it is, I would understand why people would say that's very different from anything you've done before. I want to make sure that people understand it doesn't play that different from things we've done before." What Jake Solomon said seems to be in contradiction to what he said before, but at the same time, we can kind of understand what he's trying to say. When Solomon asked whether Midnight Suns is totally different from XCOM, he appears to be contradicting himself. Although the gaming sample that was streamed today wasn't exhaustive, I believe it was sufficient to allow us to come to our own conclusions. It's clear that Midnight Suns and XCOM share certain similarities, but it's reasonable to infer that Solomon didn't mean such comparisons to be taken literally, considering that two turn-based Firaxis games are quite similar by definition. Even while his comment suggests that it hasn't dived right into deck building, it does seem like it will feel very different from XCOM. Players take turns moving heroes around in a 3D landscape and commanding them who to assault, just like in XCOM. Even though their abilities are dealt as hands of cards, big rectangles with a distinctive artwork and descriptive text seem preferable to little buttons with tooltips, especially when each hero has a different ability to remember. However, at first glance, Midnight Suns doesn't appear to be a tribute to card games. There isn't any racking of the brain over difficult combos like in Slay the Spire, but if you pay more attention, you can find cards that perform Slay the Spire related actions like draw 2 cards and apply 2 weak. Each hero in Midnight Suns receives 3 cards played per round, hence the majority of cards don't have any cost attached to them. However, some cards need a resource called Heroism. A Slay the Spire play is identical to one of the cards used in the demo, which reduces the heroism cost of a random card in a hero's hand to 0. Therefore, there are card combinations and synergies to consider here, as well as at least a few keyword effects to master. In addition to chain cards, Wolverine also has taunt and lifesteal cards that become similar functions in Hearthstone. Marvel's Midnight Suns has its differences and similarities with XCOM, but up to what extent, we're not sure of. Until then, we can only wait until the game's official release. Midnight Sun differs from XCOM in several additional ways. Before acting, you are free to wander around as much as you like. In one instance, Wolverine is told to approach a pole and pull until it topples onto a group of adversaries. The game doesn't unfold like a simulated war, and there is no permadeath. It is a single-story RPG campaign, and it appears that the RPG story is also somewhat lengthy. One of the heroes who can join your group mid-game is Wolverine, who the primary character first meets, 10 to 12 hours into the demo. The Abbey, your home base where you may hang out with the Midnight Suns crew and make friends with them to obtain unique ability cards for fighting, was briefly showcased by Firaxis after the combat scenario. The walking motion is a little dated. It gives off a bit of a Normandy vibe with Shepard parading around, but getting to know these Marvel characters, dressing up the house, and playing with your Hellhound Charlie may end up being more engaging than the actual battle. Unfortunately, we've run out of time, so that concludes today's video about the latest on Marvel's Midnight Sun. What are you most excited about in this upcoming game? Let us know in the comment section below. Before you go, don't forget to leave a like and subscribe to our channel with the notification bell on. Thanks for watching, and we'll see you again next time.